I want to make this simple in the sense that we're just going to do one slide and just kind of give a general scope of the issue. And then later on we'll talk about the biblical basis for our opposition to abortion, and we'll talk about the understanding biologically when life begins and such. But today, just a general scope. So I have not yet given you a definition. This is not a definition to start out with. This is the etymology. So, right, if I ask what the etymology is, you can say it's a baruri. It's what the word means itself. So that Latin word simply means to perish. So to abortion, for us, will be a fetal life perishing. There were a lot of practices in the ancient world. One was called exposure, where they would let the child out after birth, let the child out in the elements. Probably would only live for a few hours depending on the situation. We will define it, though, simply as the loss of fetal life. Okay? So the word means to perish, but we'll define it as the loss of fetal life. And so that you know, there are two, I don't want to call them types, but maybe we could at least say instances of abortion. The first one is procured abortion. Okay? That is when the woman goes and voluntarily seeks an abortion. You know, they seek the end of the life within them. So that's procured. They're going out to have an abortion. That really is what we're going to be talking about here for the majority of the time. You know, this is where the morality and judgment comes in. The woman that is going out to procure an abortion. A spontaneous abortion is really a miscarriage. Okay? And there are a lot of, probably up to 40% or so of all conceptions end up in a miscarriage, whether a person's aware of it or not. So there's not a moral element to those, right? There's no fault. If you have a miscarriage, it's an unfortunate event. Unless, and we're not going to get into all of it because it's obvious and nobody argues it, if the woman has abused herself, right? If she threw herself down the steps, if she has taken drugs or alcohol, or if a man or somebody else has tried to punch her or cause harm. All those things could harm the life of the unborn and can cause a spontaneous abortion, a miscarriage. Those would be immoral. But nobody really argues about that. We understand that. If somebody causes the death of another woman's baby, we know that that's wrong. Okay? The arguments are what we're into are usually around when the woman chooses it. Okay? The procured abortion. Okay. So the Catholic Church calls this the major social issue of our time. What I have here are a couple pop-ups. And this is really where I'm trying to show you the scope of the issue. You may know the statistics, or maybe perhaps you do not know the statistics. So Alan Guttmacher was a past president of Planned Parenthood, and he has the Alan Guttmacher Institute, AGI. This is not a Catholic-friendly institution. So their statistics are usually better collected than even the government. So it's a nice source to go to. Even though some of these might be dated, 2014, and one somewhere here was 2008. These are the newest statistics. I just got these off their website yesterday. So every year I go on and see if anything's been updated. So let's see what they say. Why do women have abortions? One, it could be the responsibilities of parent in the family life. But the three common reasons that they cite. So 3/4 of every woman that has an abortion cites one of these three reasons. Concern for responsibility to other individuals. In other words, I have other children. The inability to afford raising a child. I don't have the money for this. By the way, you never have the money for children. If you say, I'm going to get married and wait to have enough money to have children, I don't know when that day comes, right? The belief that having a baby would interfere with work, school, or the ability to care for other dependents. So those constitute 75% of the reason why women have abortions. So we have to take into consideration, are those good reasons? Are those good reasons? Do they have other options? Half said they did not want to be a single parent, or they were having problems with their husband or their partner. Okay. 51% of all abortion patients in 2008 were using a contraceptive method in the month they became pregnant. Condoms, hormonal method. Think of that. Over half were using contraception when they got pregnant. Anyway. In 2014, just below 50% of all abortion patients, that's fine, abortion patients, right, had never married or were not cohabitating. However, nearly half were living with a male partner in the month they became pregnant. So again, not that you asked, but other people in the past have asked, well, what if the boyfriend and girlfriend are living together and they don't have sex? And my response is, I want to meet those people. I mean, we know that what they're doing. Half of the abortions come from people who are cohabitating, right? 14% were never married, 31% were cohabitating at a time. So just a little bit of scope of the issue. One other one. 45% of all pregnancies among U.S. women in 2011 were unintended. About 4 in 10 of those they terminated by abortion. So 2/5 of, let's say, half of the population that were pregnant had abortions. 19% of pregnancies, not including miscarriages, ended in abortion. So almost 1 out of 5 of every conception ended in an abortion. That's staggering. Here's a number, and this number's down. 926,200. So just under 1 million, right? This is how many children are aborted in the year in the United States. It works out roughly to like 3,400 every single day. So think of that. Every single day, 3,400 children are aborted. It was down from 1.06 million in 2011. 1.5 of the women were between 15 and 40 had an abortion. So this was number 2, okay? So when I say the scope of the issue, here's what I mean. Oftentimes I hear people accuse those in the Catholic Church who vote to be single-issue voters, right? That's all they're concerned about. Okay. I've never met those people. Now, are there some out there that say, I only care about abortion, I don't care about anything else? I don't know. I have never met those people. Why then does the Catholic Church make this so prominent? Well, because, for one, there's nothing that compares to it. First of all, we say it's not a single issue, it's a foundational issue. In other words, until the child is born and alive, what other rights can we protect? We can't protect any other rights until the person has life. So we have to preserve life. So that's foundational. It doesn't make it single. The Catholic Church is very liberal on its immigration policies. If you don't know that, they are. They would love to see the whole process be simplified. They don't want to see any families be separated. If they are violent or illegal, then their steps should be taken. Either bring them in if they're violent, then to remove them. So the Catholic Church is very liberal on this. If you follow any of that, you would know that. But why would this be more important than immigration? Okay, well, because we're unaware of anybody legally killing 3,400 immigrants every single day. I mean, where is that happening? Who is killing almost 1 million immigrants, killing legally, by law, allowed to kill them? So we're not proportionalists, but we are in the sense that we're comparing apples for apples. So when we say preserving life is more important than getting better health care, I think we'd all agree with that. We have to make sure you're alive and that you have the right to that life, and then we'll fight for your rights for health care and other things. But we can't fight for all those other rights until you're alive. So that's why it's foundational. Mother Teresa said quite clearly that a nation will never have peace if they think of taking care of situations like this through violence. All right? So if we wonder why there's discrimination, if we wonder why these other things go on that we don't like in our country, Mother Teresa says, look what you're allowing. You've already let people know that they can achieve an end by violent means. Okay? So this is why it's such a big issue for the Roman Catholic Church. It is not the only issue, but it is a major issue. Okay, contraception and abortion. First off, what do we normally hear? There's 2 things I want you to know about this. One is, you often hear, if we make contraception more available, then we'll have less abortions. Okay. Did the statistics from the Ellen Guttmacher Institute show that? No. Half of all the people getting abortion were on contraception the month that they got pregnant. Well, then we might say, well, they need better education on contraception. Well, okay, but maybe that is true. But it's not going to, how does it happen? It's still up to the person to take care of it if that's, what their intention was. That's just one of the issues. Here's the other issue that you may never have known about. I will show you this in a little more detail, but most people, even when I teach adults, do not know how contraception works. Oral contraception, the pill. How does it work? Okay. They just know they take it and don't get pregnant. They're not quite sure what goes on. Sometimes they've heard the phrase, well, it tricks your body into thinking it's pregnant. That's, a colloquial way to say it, a pedestrian understanding, but it's somewhat true. So here's the main way that oral contraception works. It suppresses ovulation. So if a girl or woman is not ovulating, there's no chance of fertilization. That's primarily how it works, and that's what it's designed to do. There's a secondary way that oral contraception works. It can make the cilia in the vaginal cavity, it doesn't allow the sperm to easily travel, okay? So if the sperm can't make it up the fallopian tube, then even if there is ovulation, then there's no fertilization. Those are two of the primary ways that it works. But here's a term I want you to know, and you should write this down. It's called breakthrough ovulation, all right? Breakthrough ovulation. Many OBGYNs and other embryologists say that 2 to 4, not, just 2% to 4% of the time a woman has breakthrough ovulation. What does that mean? That means that even while she was on the pill, the egg did, release. The sperm still made it there, and we had fertilization. We now have an embryo. We now have a life, a human life. It takes about 4, 5, 6, 7 days for this embryo to travel down the fallopian tube. And the endometrium, this is the uterine wall, the third effect of this is it makes that wall hostile to implantation. So that egg cannot implant. So you have a fertilized egg that broke through, cannot implant, comes out in menses. That's a spontaneous abortion, one that the individual is responsible for. So think of this. I don't know if I remember I told you that I have been teaching on contraception for 13, 14 years. I have never once had anybody come to me and say, you've changed my mind. So I'm pretty bad at it, I must be. Except one couple, it was a Jehovah's Witness couple. And this is how I convinced them, and they stopped using it, because they're absolutely opposed to abortion. A woman has a fertility window of 7 to 9 days, all right? If you're on the pill and you have sex in those 7 to 9 days, 2 to 4% of the time, you've had breakthrough ovulation. You've had a spontaneous abortion and knew nothing about it because it comes out in menses. That's a moral issue, all right? So the link between contraception and abortion is it can be an abortifacient. Now, it used to say that on the box that you'd get your prescription in. It no longer says that. On Monday, I'll tell you how they changed the language so that it wouldn't say that anymore. This is the trick of the language, right? But nonetheless, so that's the connection, all right? That's the connection. And again, just keep in your mind, to tell a person will go on contraception and will have less abortions, the statistics do not bear that out, okay? Okay, when you hear life of the mother, like, let's say that I'm a candidate and they're telling me that I'm so far off, and they look at me and they're like, look, he won't even let them have an abortion when the life of the mother is at risk. What does that mean? Does anybody know what that means when you say life of the mother? What do you think it means?
Like if the mother has the child, that she's going to get hurt or killed?
She's going to get hurt or killed. That would be the ordinary understanding of it, right? That's not how the law reads it, though. All right? After Roe v. Wade, there was another Supreme Court decision called Doe v. Bolton. All right? And what Doe v. Bolton said is that you can extend abortions for the life of the mother and make exceptions. Okay? But here's their exceptions. Does it create suffering, dislocations, misery, or tragedy to make an early abortion the only civilized step to take? In other words, I know it's small print, but here are the factors that they consider. Like, we would normally understand life of the mother as she would die. Now, that is included, but that's not what they're talking about. Are there physical factors we need to consider? Are there emotional factors with her? Are there psychological factors with her? Are there familial factors with her? Her family, how are they going to take this? How old is the woman? She's 37? That could be life of the mother, even though she may be fine, right? So what happens is we can't have, politicians never have good dialogue about this. Because if a politician stood up and said, I'm against abortion, even in the case of life of the mother, oh, they're going to get hammered. They don't even care if they die. But that's the problem is we can't have a discussion. That's not what they're talking about. The law doesn't state it has to be death. The law states that it could be her emotional, psychological well-being. All right? I just want you to be aware of the parameters of that, so that you don't think it's not understood as narrowly as we assume. So these people are not, although it is true, the Catholic Church would be against it even in these cases. All right? Now there are still other hard cases, right? Somebody might say, what if truly the woman will die? A woman could have, like, remember I told you if a woman had cancer, right, uterine cancer, and she's pregnant, and you can't, and to withhold treatment 6-7 months, the woman may die. The Catholic Church has no problem with a woman receiving treatment, even if it ends up with the young unborn child dying. That falls underneath the principle of double effect. At this level, I can't teach you everything, right? We have to determine what we can and cannot teach. So it could be, we'll talk about double effect. If you guys choose bioethics as one of the modules next quarter, then we'll talk about the principle of double effect. But anyway, my point is, just so you know that the parameters of that are wider than you think. Okay, the last thing is, what about abortion and the cases of rape and incest? Right? Because that's what you normally hear. Even like a so-called pro-life, which is a term, all slogans are really like lame. What does it mean to be pro-life? What, are you pro-death? I mean, so we have to watch how the language we use. So some people will say, well, I'm pro-life, I'm against abortion, except for the life of the mother, rape, or incest. That's usually what you'll hear from a person that might be on the conservative side. And you already get how, like, socially, we're on the other side, because you saw the journal that I started out with. We look like liberals, and then we go here, we look like conservatives. We're neither, really. First of all, I want you to know that the term incest has absolutely nothing to do with this. It's an inflammatory term thrown out there to really tug on your yuck factor strings. Okay? Now, why do I say that? If a person is if a person has sex against their will, whether they're related to them or not, it's still rape. Either it's father-daughter rape, uncle-daughter, I mean, it's still rape. Incest is only qualifying it, all right? Now, why I say that this word has nothing to do with it is because there are plenty of people who consensually have incest. And when we get to human sexuality, I'll show you that. In articles, people, father-daughters, brothers-sisters, they are fighting for the right to marry, and that might make you feel yucky, but that's incest. So that has nothing to do with the abortion issue. So I'm trying to separate what has to do with the abortion issue and what is just inflammatory. So we're concerned about rape. Okay, now, that does occur, I think, somewhere like 0.05% of the time. So it's a genuine concern. A person is raped, now what do we do? Okay, first off, if the woman goes to a Catholic hospital and she's just been raped, they are going to immediately do a test to find out, has she ovulated? If she has not yet ovulated, they will administer emergency contraception to suppress the ovulation, right? I already said that's one of the things it does. Now, somebody might say, and they have, I thought the Catholic Church was against contraception. But you already know how to do the object, intention, circumstance. And you know the object takes all the other things into consideration. First of all, they don't call that's not an act of contraception, any more than if you happen to have, hormonal issues. It could be that you have hormonal issues or you have depressive mood swings, and through the care of physicians, they put you on contraception. You're not on contraception, you're being treated with hormones. I know it's the same thing, but it's not called that, right? What they will do is they consider the sperm as an extension of the attacker. So as much as they would stop the rape, they're going to stop this from the rape. That's how they look at that. It's self-defense. Now, if the woman has ovulated, it is true the Catholic Church will not, in any hospital, and 1/3 of all the hospitals in the United States are Catholic hospitals, they will not administer emergency contraception, because that will likely cause a spontaneous abortion, all right? So then the idea then people will say, well, so that woman's supposed to have the baby? Yes. So we have to balance the tragedy of the violence of how this child was conceived to the fact that it is a human person. In other words, the way that a person is conceived doesn't change remember, morality is based on what the thing is. It doesn't change what we're talking about here, all right? So this is just the scope of the issue. I just want to let you know why it's a major social issue. It's not a single issue, it's a foundational issue, and the relationship between contraception and abortion, life of the mother and incest. Thank you mutually.